My man, Carlos, thank you so much for coming on the Winners Paradigm podcast, brother. It's an honor to connect with you because I seen you on Instagram. We conversated a little bit and I seen your story and I was like, man, it's truly powerful and enlightening. But what I love about you most, brother, is just that pain, that conviction behind it to where when you change your life around, you have that certainty. So, first off, thank you, brother, for coming on. Secondly, would you mind giving us a brief intro, who you are, what you're passionate about today, brother?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. I ran across your page and started looking at your episodes, and I'm like, yeah, this is it's a great platform, and a lot of people need to hear your message and the people that you have on. I'm Carlos Vasquez. I'm the founder and CEO of How to Battle, and How to Battle is a company that um, I like to say we build a bridge between the youth and corporate America. So we train and coach youth on how to be better in the workforce. So teach them things like leadership, communication, accountability, how to create effective routines, how to look a person in their eye and shake their hand when you go and you meet them, things that they may not be getting taught in school. And so we teach them, and then we work with companies and organizations to get them into entry level positions after they've been trained. So we kind of like take the stuff that they've been dealing with the youth these days. We kind of take care of that before they even enter the workforce. So that's what I do today. I'm also a speaker, author, and I just try to give back and make as big an impact as I can while I'm here. So that's who I am today.
That's incredible, brother. I love exactly what you guys are doing there, and I think that's the second powerful thing is just helping the younger generation, on what we didn't have essentially,
Mhm.
and being that, and it's like we reflect and we think about it for us, it's like it was hard for a fucking reason, and it cultivated that mindset, cultivated that work ethic, cultivated us to be the individuals we are. But at the same time, it's like that's not the goal. The goal isn't to pass that same struggle on to the next. It's to help them be better.
Yeah.
So love the mission there, brother. Let's talk about
Yeah.
early on what it was like for you, life, how you were able to flip things around, and when you really hit that point of, hey, I can be the best I can be no matter the circumstance.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a really good neighborhood with both my parents. They both were in the medical field. I went to Catholic school, had a good life, played baseball, and my father left when I was about 12 years old. He just left our family, and my mother went into a depression, and she was forced to take on multiple jobs, and we ended up losing our home. And so I ended up running away when I was 13 years old because my sister and my mother, were fighting a lot. My sister got pregnant at 16. She was in using drugs, and so the environment became very toxic. And I just kind of followed in the footsteps of my father, and just like he checked out, that's what I did. So I ran away, and I ended up in the streets. Remember, I was homeless when I was 13, sleeping in the car in the back of my friend's apartment complex. And I quickly got embraced by the men in that environment. So they introduced me to drugs, they introduced me to crime, they introduced me to gangs, and I became a gang member. 14, I got addicted to drugs when I was 14, and I was full fledged in the streets. And by the time I was 18 years old, I was on the run for bank robbery and other armed robberies by the U.S. Marshals. And I got detained, and I was in court fighting life in prison because of the gang enhancement. So I was fighting life in prison for about a year. One day, the district attorney offered me a deal for 20 years, and I took the deal. I took the hardest decision I ever made because I had 5 minutes to make it. That's all he gave me, and it was either that or go to trial and face life. So I took the deal, and I went to prison by the time I was 19. And my first decade in is like I became worse. I mean, your environment creates who you become. So I was already very impressionable and wanted to be accepted, and had this ego, and felt like I needed to prove myself. So when I went in, it was like that doubled. And so I went in, and I started to get involved in more violent things, and By about a decade in, I ended up becoming the shot caller in prison, and that landed me in solitary confinement for 3 years. So I went to solitary confinement for 3 years, and it was there where I was like, "Yeah, I can't do this." So I was going to end my life, and I remember I planned it. I wrote a letter to my mother, put it in my property. So if they found me, my body, they would give my property to my mother, and it's just saying, like, apologizing and for all the pain that I put her through, and uh, just like literally a day, almost 2 days before I was going to do it, a chaplain came down to the solitary housing unit, and he came to my cell, and just randomly walking through there, he called me over, and um, he told me everything I needed to hear that night to get me through one more night. And he gave me a Bible, and he told me to figure out what my purpose was, and that I had one. And he challenged me, and that was the one thing that stood out to me, was the challenge. I hadn't been challenged up to that point in a long time. And so that like gave me something to look forward to the next day, to try to see if I could figure what that was, my purpose. And so I did. And in the process of the 3 years, I worked on myself every day. I read 150 books. I just worked on myself relentlessly. And then after 3 years, I got out. I went back to general population, and I let the people know there that I was no longer going to be a part of that destructive life. And I remember I got stabbed twice because of that. But I went back to my cell, and I stitched up my wound, which I learned how to do when I first went in. Um, and as painful as it was, it felt good to know that that was done. And so after that, I went out and, I still watched my back every day, but I went to the chapel and I started to formulate coaching groups with lifers, those that I knew kind of wanted to change, but just didn't know where to start, shared what I had learned, and started to see the transformation in them. And that's why I knew when I got out 4 years after that, I had something. I got out with $200, and I ended up going out into and starting my business and just going from there. So
Boom. Love it, brother.
yeah,
Love it because it definitely takes a lot of willpower, mindset. But two,
mhm.
clarity. You understood, you did the work, you went into it. And let's touch on the mindset component of that, brother. When you started to formulate what was important to you in the life that you're creating by design, and then saying that, hey, this politics, the things that do not suit you anymore, we need to release those limiting beliefs. How important was it for you to start recreating the belief systems that you had, and then dismantling those limiting belief systems?
Yeah. I have to move really quick. Is that okay? To the other room?
No worries, brother.
All right. Are you there? All right, man. Sorry about that.
No worries. It worked out. I had to move the little one anyway. She
Yeah.
was good and then was screaming right next to me. So I don't know if you heard it a little bit,
Yeah,
but
I did. I was like, that's cool though, man. So it makes it.
I'm gonna clean all this out. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It makes, but it's cool because it's like you're doing this, but then you're also like taking care of the little ones, and it's like no excuses, right? You're making it happen. So yeah, I respect that.
I appreciate you, bro. Yeah, for me, I used to run away from it.
Mhm.
Not to tangent off that, but I interviewed John Lee Dumas. I'm like, this is the godfather of podcasting. I'm so hyped.
Mhm.
The only podcast that I didn't say that. I didn't say, hey, I have my little ones, blah, blah, blah. Every single one I do the rundown, but I had 13 minutes. I didn't do it. So he called
Yeah.
me out for it. And it kind of was something where I was just like, took offense. And I was just like, hey, that's not it. So I made it a mission every single time.
Yep.
But two, it kind of was culminating because that's the reason why I stopped working was my nanny moved to Minnesota. You know, I was making all right money, 65 a year,
Yeah.
65,000 a year, capped out at a sales position. And I'm holding my daughter, making sales calls.
Yeah.
And the company's like, hey, do you really want to be here anymore? And once I heard that, I was like, they don't give a shit about me. So I was like,
Mhm.
no, and I ended up quitting. It was Wednesday when we had that conversation. I talked to the manager because I let him know the situation. I was like, hey, I'm working 60 to 80 hours while going to school at that time because I got out the military.
Mhm.
And it was funny because after that, I was like, hey, I'm never going to go through this. So I used to go through a harsh way and be like, somebody can fuck off. They have a problem with it. And then I
Yeah.
just understood as like, bro, it's just alignment. I don't need to be that aggressive.
Right.
It's like, hey, man, like that's what I do. I take care of my kids, run the business. And honestly, that's been the most rewarding. And also the best part is like just saying for me, doing what I used to run from and get
Mhm.
embarrassed about was like, yo, I got my kids, blah, blah, blah. Even
Yeah.
when it's a big episode, now it's cool because I just have that composure, that
Yeah.
confidence, and I say it, and then people are like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Do you take care of your kids? And it's like,
Yeah.
it's surprising when you just have better energy, what it's like.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that, man. But yeah. Okay. The question. Can you ask it one more time? So that way I can. We can just go from there, I guess.
Yeah. So my question was when it came to the mindset side of the house, you're eliminating those limiting beliefs. You're becoming the better version of yourself. You're releasing all the politics and the negative belief systems that were created. How important was it for you to dismantle them and then build this new foundation of who you are, how you live every single day?
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of I'm working on another book right now, and in the book I'm talking about some of the stuff that I learned in prison in my old life. I would say that I still hold with me today. It's just I channel it in a different way. Um, Things like discipline. I learned like I became a man in prison, and one of the things that I was taught was discipline, respecting like how to respecting people and the importance of that, just having like being helpful moments, having moments of like time to reflect, all those things I learned in prison, like even before I changed my life, and those are things that just helped me get through the day. And so out here I brought those same things out here, and I've been doing the same stuff, but now it's driving more positive initiatives. Instead of in there I was more focused on the negative. So for me, when I transitioned my life, it was very important, obviously, to be able to go out and do good in the world. But also, I didn't want to lose some of the stuff that I had acquired that actually I thought were strong things to have, like honesty and integrity and those type of things that comes with in that prison life. Because really, it's about survival in there. If you're dishonest or you say the wrong thing, it can cost you your life. So I got really careful with how I made moves, and so out here I do the same. Um, and so I say during my transformation, uh, like it was important for me to definitely transform, but it was also important to hold on to some of the stuff that I knew was going to help me be successful in my new life. So, and we're constantly in some way growing or transforming. So even now, like as I continue to learn and get better and transform, uh, holding on to some of those things that I know are like strengths and not letting myself lose those despite the environment I'm in. Just always doing the right thing, even when nobody's looking or nobody else is doing it. So that's important for me. Yeah.
Bro, that's so powerful. And I resonated a little bit with you, not same background, but around certain things. And that was something for me where it was like, I had friends that were doing dumb shit and I was right next to them. And for me, it just didn't resonate with me. You know, I had a bigger vision about what it was.
Yeah.
I'm from Fresno, so grew up right there, and then was in a small town. So like
Mhm.
everybody was just getting fucking crazy, acting stupid all the time. And that
Mhm.
was one of the reasons why I was like, hey, I need to figure some shit out, you know. And it was funny because the lessons I learned then is like, my dad told me a slang word. I didn't know what the
Mhm.
fuck it meant. I called somebody, it almost got stabbed in seventh grade. Then I learned pretty fucking quick of,
Mhm.
hey, this is what you say, this is what you don't say. And it was funny because like I started learning all these things on the street, and then I got in the Marine Corps. And when I went to the schoolhouse, these East Coast guys were just punking fools. And it was funny because like I was like, oh, I'm in the fucking military, you know?
Mhm.
And they were like,
Mhm.
oh, we're from New York. This is what we do on the street. And they're like, y'all Cali ends are soft, you know? And I was
Yeah.
just like, who the fuck are you talking to me like that? Because
Yeah.
again, you know, where I'm from, that shit doesn't fly, you know?
Yeah.
And I was that kid that was fat, was pushed around, got my ass kicked so many times. Like I was fighting in fucking preschool to where that was what it was. It's like I did it for so long, and then I learned how to manipulate my situations to get out of it, and then
Yeah.
it led into bigger situations of not doing it, and then eventually one of my cousins was struck out on meth,
Mhm.
started gang banging. He sent somebody, some of my homies that from elementary school were best friends. They tried to jump me over him, and I was like, no, I don't claim that shit. And it
Mhm.
was just kind of funny because it was just like, what the fuck are we doing here, you know? And then when it really came down to it, they're laughing and they're like, yeah, bro, we knew, but we couldn't let you slide. And I was just kind of like, you know, if you knew, why would you come up to me?
Right.
So it's funny when I was in the military because it was the same thing. It was like I was watching my back again. I'm
Mhm.
vetting all the fucking people out. And then in the business sector, it was funny. It's like I thought, oh, everybody's in here trying to be the best they can be. You know, it's the same thing. And it was funny
Yeah.
because I literally put something the other day. It's like I'd rather be alone than to be around people you can't trust, that'll burn you, that'll do all these things. Because in business, I forgot that principle. I forgot that principle of
Mhm.
vetting the people out, of really listening, observing, and seeing how they interact and how they even show up for themselves before I put my stamp on them. Like, oh, they're good people. And it was funny
Mhm.
because like once I went back to that principle and I started thinking about that, I was like, hey, everybody has something to gain, whether it's going to be, you know, being a better person, being a better friend. If you figure out what their motive is, you figure out how you can help them. That's where the relationship's going to get better. And it was funny because I had some partnerships I fell out and I started getting in a negative space. When I thought about it again, you know, it went to that energy of like, hey, this is where I was at. And two, I wasn't doing what I knew I was supposed to do, you know, taking
Yeah.
care of myself, just being the best individual. Because again, I was going back to being selfish, just like everybody around me. So when we talk about communities, brother, you're building them, you're showing it as a servant leader. How important is it for us to continually filter out who we have around us, but also understand that we have to be the best individuals we can for everyone around as well?
Yeah, yeah. I think that like man, community is such a huge part of everything, success or failure, depending on what community you're in, depends a lot about who you're going to become and what you're going to be doing in the world. So I think that one way or another, young men, young women are going to be a part of some type of community. And so it's either a community that we create and help them and guide them into a good one, or it's going to be one that may not be so good. And so, but I think that we have a natural tendency to want to be a part of something, a group of something. And like I mentioned before, like I was remember being on baseball was my thing, and then once I ended up in the streets, it became the gang life, right? And then like now I'm a part of a men's group, a couple of them actually, but they're like one's a Catholic men's group, and the other one is also a men's group. But we work out 3 times a week. We get together and just talk and help each other out and come together and do family stuff. So and it's actually very healthy for people to be in communities, positive communities around positive people. And so if we are as leaders, we are have the ability to create those or introduce people to those, then we should. And I think that that's how we're able to help the youth a lot, is introduce them and expose them to good positive communities outside of the ones that they may be currently in that aren't so good. And that can completely change everything in them. And so that's their support network. That's the people that they can go to when they have questions and they need advice and they need help. So it's key.
That's so fucking powerful, brother. that hit me, right there, right when you're saying the communities and what you have to do. Because again, got out the Marine Corps, I was injured, my body fell apart, which that's been a whole other beast, and it's been funny within that because it wasn't alignment. I went into these jobs positions. I went into working at a mortgage brokerage thinking that that was going to be it. I'm
Mhm.
around these dudes that are making 400, 500 G's. And it was funny because all of them, for the most part, like there was only like two people who had a tough upbringing or like could resonate with me. But it was funny because I was trying to fit into a community, fit into people where I was like, oh,
Mhm.
they make this money. I'm going to be like them. Where a lot of these guys are coming off mommy and daddy's couch. And then like on Fridays, they would fucking be like, oh, you can wear whatever you want. You could be casual.
Mhm.
So here goes me with a black t-shirt, my Dodger hat on, and fucking a Nipsey Hustle t-shirt on.
Mhm.
And I'm just like chilling. Every Friday it was the same. Like I dressed the same way. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, you're ghetto, you're this or that. And again, like it got me in my head and I'm talking shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you won't do anything about it. And it's just like I was going back to the
Yeah.
reactive state. And it was the community that wasn't there. And it was funny. It's like I quit that job. We got a
Yeah.
house that day. They're like, uh, I ended up going to quit. It was like 2:30. And I was like, fuck it. I'm done being here. So I text my wife. I'm like, I'm done being at this job. I'm going to move on. We're going to figure out what it's going to be. And I go up to them. They're like, hey, you want to put your 2 weeks in? I was like, nah, not really. And I was like, nah, fuck it. Tomorrow's not promised. Today's my last day. They're like, what? And I was like, nah, I can't wait anymore. Like, what am I going to
Yeah.
do being here? My personality was changing and I was checking out of life. Like we were saying, I was smoking because I'm going through all these physical ailments. So I'm thinking that these edibles are helping me, which in turn they weren't because they were too fucking strong. And
Mhm.
I wasn't doing what I needed to do. So I was like, hey, it's alignment. It's a party culture here. I'm trying to stop drinking. Key word was trying instead of just actually doing it.
Mhm.
And then two, it was just being around these people who don't resonate with me. They don't understand it. They label me.
Yeah.
They'd say dumb shit to me. Besides, like there was two other dudes who were like black dudes from Philly. So they understood a little bit. We would be talking and they're laughing and shit.
Yeah.
Because people would just say reckless shit, and then I look at them and they're like, "Hey, bro, don't do anything," And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, they can't be fucking doing this around here." And it was just funny because again, it was back in that mentality, that mindset that wasn't going to
Yeah.
suit me, and I was thinking that I can apply to everything where it was the small things eliminating. So, love the way you said that about community as well, because that was something for me where I was just in the wrong environments, thinking that even if it is sales,
Mhm.
this is where I need to be, and it was like, nah, bro, like I was just wasting my energy talking about irrelevant shit that wasn't going to be it. And I think that's something that happens a lot today. Is like we see all this shit online. People want to be talking about irrelevant things versus like being the best we can be. So,
Right.
love that about you, brother.
Mhm.
When it comes to taking massive action, you're clearly doing that, and that's something people get stumped up on. Is we think about all the things that could go wrong, or we think about that just the bigger picture as a whole. For you, you
Mhm.
broke it down in little segments. You made sure that you focused on it, and then you set your whole life up by design. When we're coming up with these goals, when we're coming up with doing the things that are a little scary to us, what do we do that breaks them down to be able to be minute details and that's actually actionable?
Yeah. I think the work starts first with yourself. I think before you really are confident enough to go tackle something big, you have to really work on you. You have to know you, um, and understand what your strengths are, understand what your weaknesses are, where you need to grow in. So that's the first thing, because then you have, if you know what your strengths are, okay, that I could put a lot of my energy into that, and then when I'm not so strong in, I could either go learn about that, ask for help in that area, or even bring somebody on if you're at that point and you could do that. So I think it's really about the self-awareness, understanding you, and then key thing too is to just understand what you ultimately want to accomplish, like having as clear as possible vision of where you want to go and what you want, because there's going to be plenty of moments when you're going to have to make decisions, and a lot of those decisions are going to be hard to make if you don't know what your ultimate vision is and your goal. You're going to have to say no to things in order to say yes to another. So having that clarity, and then like anything, just sometimes you got to just dive into the deep end. You can't really overthink it. You don't really want to wait too long. I think you just get into it and be willing to learn and grow with the punches, because there's things that you just can't plan for. So anytime you're doing something difficult and you're trying to accomplish something, those things, you just have to have that mindset. And so, but like I said, it all starts with you knowing you first, because you can go into something, and if you're not capable of handling it, like, then you'll give up, or it'll become too stressful for you, and there's all kind of different other scenarios that can happen. And so it's that mastering yourself, if you can, before you really get started on something, or in the process of it, working on yourself too. That's a big part of it. Like, my first uh, 2 hours that I wake up is dedicated to growing myself. Like, just working on me. I don't um, work on anything. I don't work on the business or anything outside of me for those first 2 hours of my day, because I know I need to be the best I could be for everything else to operate efficiently. So it just starts with you, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way, brother. That's what I've realized for me as well. And this will be the second part, before we close it out. The discipline factor, of like, regardless, every day, this is what I do. I used to say that, I get to, and I understood for me, I'm saying just for me, I wasn't taking action. I was just being in a state of gratitude, but wasn't applying that to life. It's like, oh, I get to do these things, but one time an inconvenience pops up, or we go back to Fresno for family
Mhm.
events. Here goes me just being back in my head, thinking about bullshit, being in that low frequency place because
Yeah.
I don't like the environment, and then it goes into whatever. So it was funny for me because, again, I noticed I was in my own way, started working out every day. And I'm like, well, at least if I get this workout in, I do these 400 burpees and I stop bitching about not going to the gym. And I do this backyard workout. At least
Yeah.
I'm somewhat in a better headspace. And then I can go about the day. And it was like, once I did that, I realized that it wasn't even about anything else. It was just about, I already showed up for myself. The day's been easy. That was the thing for me, is like, I'm routine every single
Hmm.
day I'm home, but when I go other places, now there's a adversity there.
Yeah.
So I love the way you kind of said that, is you have to set yourself up regardless of circumstance, regardless of day, and it really just shows in the man you are. So I appreciate you there, brother.
Hmm.
When it comes to the discipline factor, and you get to those days, like you were saying, you get to the days where you're like, man, I don't know if I can do this. I don't feel well. I don't have 100% in the tank. I don't know what to do. And you start strategizing, hey, what do I do for this day? What do you say to that guy that's kind of struggling with that discipline factor, then thinks that he can take it at his speed when he would like to?
Yeah. You got to find something that inspires you. I think that's key, and it's actually one of the principles that I live by, and that I help others to understand, and that helped me change my life, was knowing that life is going to be difficult, knowing you're going to run into challenges and days you don't feel like getting up and going out there and doing what you have to do. It's knowing what that is. And for me, in solitary confinement, what inspired me to like get up every morning, knowing that I was going to be in that box 24 hours for a long time, was thinking about my mom was going to take care of her when she got older. And so she started off, that was what inspired me to keep going. It wasn't even about me or what I wanted yet, because I didn't love myself enough yet to do it for me. I had to do it for others. And so maybe that's what that is. And out here, we have the ability to, you know, set things up within our world to make it easier. So it's finding out what specifically moves you. Like, is it thinking about one of your kids, right? Giving them a better life, right? Maybe you need to have that on your vision board, or maybe it's a certain song or something that brings you back to a place, or a certain motivational video, or a certain person you think of. But whatever that is that inspires you, when you're not feeling it, you need to default to that. You need to think about that. You need to set yourself up to where that's on your mind on those days, because that's going to get you going. And then once you get going, you catch momentum. So it's things like that have helped a lot. And I think that people who are somewhat disciplined but just can't stay consistent, or want to get more disciplined, it's about finding those people, or that thing, or that dream, or whatever it is that's going to inspire you through those tough moments. Think about people. I think about people who I meet just randomly out in life, people that have been through so much, or they, like, kids that I ran into who were 13 years old in foster group homes that I spoke to. I think about that. Like, I think about them when I'm like laying there and I'm like contemplating getting up and going out there and getting it. I think about them, and I'm like, no, I got to get up. You know what I'm saying? Because who knows if I might have to go impact somebody like that today. And so, and that I'm telling you, that gives you an energy that once you get and know what that is, it gives you an energy that you can't really you can't mimic, man. And everybody has their own thing. And so it's like going back to knowing you and figuring out what that is for you.
Boom, bro. I love
Yeah.
that so much. And that's something I'm continuously thinking about, is I got friends that died along the way. And I used to just get in a depressive state and then really not want to be around anybody because scared of losing somebody else, and it was like I disassociated and then I would get into bad places and I would start thinking about that. So for me, it was that. And then one of the biggest components for me was just being that man I didn't have. I had my dad, but my dad was doing dumb shit, just being a player. Had the mouthpiece, and I'm thinking that's that. But for me, he didn't follow all the core values that it
Hmm.
was. I had a racist stepdad that was a hardworking man, but he didn't
Yeah.
like fucking black people. Would say crazy shit. Oh, you fucking hoodlums. If I had a white T-shirt on or something, fucking
Hmm.
coming after me, and it's like I understood the principle, but just the way he would say shit, I'm like, bro, I can't fuck with you on that level. Like
Yeah.
behind closed doors, he's saying all these crazy things, and people don't realize it, and it was just always something for me where it was going back to that man. So it was funny. It's like when the times where I'd beat myself up and I would think about that, that's what would pop up for me is like, hey, you're really going to be complaining about shit when there's people that don't even have the opportunity to be here anymore. I grew up and I was always looking for that man, and that's why I struggled. And that's why I got into dumb situations. Was always looking for that individual that I thought had all everything. And then when I figure out that they're not perfect, here goes me crumbled again because I'm like, oh, well, I
Hmm.
fucking invested so much time into this dude, and now they're not it. So it's on to the next thing. And
Yeah.
then I met one of my wife's cousins who he got out for a little bit, and then he got life after that.
Mm.
Allegedly, he did something, and that shit kind of broke me a little bit, just because I met him. He was a cool ass dude, and it was cool like hearing about him and then just conversating with him. And I was like, that's a cool ass fucking dude. Like, so it was just hearing this, and then one day, it was just a bad day, and I just kind of thought about it. And I'm like, bro, this dude's never gonna get out. Like, it's an unfortunate circumstance. Love the guy to death. Hopefully, I wish I could have spent more time with him. But that's just some crazy shit. And we're gonna be sitting here just beating ourselves up, not thinking about things, being ungrateful for the moment, for the time that we have here.
Mhm.
So again, got me in a better space, and I started understanding like we can't just be playing around thinking that time is forever. So I appreciate you, bro.
Yeah.
You've been an amazing guest today. We'll wrap it up with this last thing. What would you say to the previous version of yourself? You don't know where to start. You just want to align yourself with your definition of success.
Yeah. It's one of the questions that is always different every time I answer that question. I've been getting it's crazy. I used to answer this question, and ask the question even when I was in prison, and we used to be in our groups. And it's amazing when we look back. And I would tell my younger self the same thing I tell the younger people I work with today. And I actually, when I talk to them, I envision myself being them, and I put myself in their shoes so I can empathize and I can have the compassion. But um, I tell them to borrow the belief in themselves from me. And I think that a lot of young people, specifically me, when I was young, we didn't believe in ourselves to do something bigger than what I was doing, or to overcome an adversity that I had been dealing with. We didn't believe in that. We just didn't believe that we could. And so I would tell my younger self to, maybe you don't believe in yourself yet, but just borrow the belief in me, and let that be the reason that you go and you try, because I see something in you. And I think as adults and as men, we have a moral responsibility to see things in others, especially the youth, and guide them, and believe in them, and support them, and teach them, and help them, because they don't have that in themselves yet. And so I would do that. I would tell my younger self to believe that you can overcome what you're going through, and take that belief from me and borrow it, and let that be why you go out and do something different in the world.
Man, love that so
Hmm.
much. That's something I'm always tapping into lately. Where I've been talking about that is like growing up, I'd always hear that thing, oh, mijo, we're Mexican. We
Hmm.
don't have money, blah, blah, blah. Like we can't afford that. And one
Yeah.
time I couldn't afford a school trip for just $13, and I was just so pissed off. In my head, I was like, I'm not broke. Like, there was no telling me that, but two, that's one of the moments that changed my life. Was
Yeah.
just I hated being told you're less than, you're never gonna be more, you're never gonna have more. So I just did the same thing. You know, I figured out for me, hey, how can I be that? How can I make that powerful, brother? Where can people find you, man, if they want to keep up with you? They want to hear more of your story, brother.
Yeah, so howtobattle.com is my website, and then I'm on Instagram at howtobattle, and um, also on YouTube at howtobattle, and other social media platforms as well. But in either of those, if you go to How to Battle, you'll find my links to everything else. So that's where you can find me, and I'm constantly posting new stuff on my speaking events, and just speaking to the youth, speaking to people, my upcoming stuff. So yeah, you can find me there.
Boom, brother. Yeah, we'll definitely have that in the show notes. So
Mhm.
everybody go give them a follow. Check them out. I've been watching a lot of YouTubes lately, and man,
Yeah,
just love the way you speak, your
thank
energy.
you.
You've been teaching me how to be better with my
Mhm.
story. So thank you again, brother. It was an immense honor.
I appreciate it.